What's going on, guys? This is Rob. If you guys enjoy my content, make sure you hit the subscribe button and make sure you hit that little bell so you never miss out on my sexy voice. All right, so truth to tell, Infinity is turning out to be a lot more popular than I thought it would be. Man, I didn't realize you guys would be that excited about it. I didn't really plan on doing any of the tie-ins. I just planned on doing like the main events and like the main story itself and then just kind of talking about the tie-ins as we go through it. But like, I'm looking at the comments and looking at how many of you guys are watching it and I'm just like, okay, so I guess we will cover the tie-in where the Black Order like crushes the Earth superheroes. Now this is cool. Like it's one of the coolest things ever. Like dude, I love the Cull Obsidian. Like it's one of the coolest ideas, like having Thanos' own order. Now, one thing I want you guys to bear in mind, the next video that comes out, we actually won't reference this because I'm recording this after I recorded that one, but we'll make sure this fits in terms of like the video playlist and you know, being in chronological order, all that kind of good stuff. But initially this picks up with what the Cull Obsidian has learned, that the Infinity Stones are basically gone. Now remember, this comes from the Outrider. This comes from that Outrider that showed up on Earth and it was looking for the Infinity Stones so the Infinity Gauntlet could be reformed. And of course, once it reported back, its mind was read and we end up learning what it is that's going on. And it's kind of interesting because the Cull Obsidian doesn't necessarily agree with Thanos. In Thanos's mind, he is looking to regain absolute power. And even like Supergiant is just kind of like, okay, but there's only one stone left. There's only the Time Stone. And remember, we covered that in Hickman's Avengers and New Avengers. When the incursions were happening, Captain America got the Infinity Gauntlet. He tried to push one of the other universes away and it destroyed the Infinity Stones. Everything except for the Time Stone was shattered and the Time Stone disappeared. But because of the fact that it's still there, Thanos' response is you only ever really need one stone and that makes you God. Not only that, like what this would do, if Thanos got the Time Stone, he could just jump back into the past to the point when the Illuminati presumably had the Infinity Gems. He could just kill them all, take the Infinity Gems, jump back to the modern day, have a fully fleshed out Infinity Gauntlet and retain godhood. But remember, it's kind of cool because for Thanos, being God is like it's like a drug, because over the course of his publication history, he's been God a multitude of times. The first time it was the Cosmic Cube. The second time it was the Infinity Gauntlet. You know, we saw a handful of things going on. If you read Marvel The End, he's had like the heart of the universe, the power of the one above all, and he destroyed the entire multiverse with that kind of power. Thanos has attained godhood in a multitude of ways, and even in his base form, without the Infinity Stones, he's crazy powerful. I mean, he went toe to toe against Galactus, albeit Galactus was in a relatively weakened state, but he managed to like hold his own against Galactus, a cosmic entity. So I mean, there's a lot of power to be had here, and it's kind of interesting because like the Ebony Maw kind of speaks up and is like, look, I mean, sure, we could go for this, but like there's other things that we could focus our efforts on. But again, this is an invasion fleet. Attack the Earth, capture these, you know, capture the Infinity Stones. Those are Thanos's direct orders. And so what happens is this conflict takes place in a variety of different areas. Initially, the opening skirmish really takes place in New York. So you have like Reed Richards, you have Iron Man, Tony Stark, and they're using whatever technology they have at their disposal, but you're talking about super advanced technology. The other part really comes with like Wakanda. And this is cool because Black Dwarf shows up on the doorstep of Black Panther. Now let me tell you something, man. Wakanda is where villains go to die. Only a fool goes to Wakanda starting problems, right? Everyone loses. Like no one wins. The only person who really successfully won was like Dr. Doom, and like he started an insurrection. And that's one of the things I want you guys to be aware of. We already covered the story from Hickman's Fantastic Four where Black Panther stopped being the quote unquote king of Wakanda and became the king of the dead. Now, a little bit of a refresh here for those of you guys who didn't see that. Black Panther was king of Wakanda for years and years and years and years, at least T'Challa was. But there came a point when Black Panther was injured and then like acquiesced or really kind of ceded the throne to his sister Shuri, who took over the role of Black Panther. The issue with this is that where T'Challa would have gone back to that role, Dr. Doom actually instigated an insurrection inside of Wakanda, allowing a handful of really these insurgents to take over and basically oust everyone, including Shuri and T'Challa himself. Now, this whole scheme by Dr. Doom was for the purpose of acquiring all the vibranium stores of Wakanda, which he did. And the result was that in order for Dr. Doom to be defeated, because vibranium amplifies magical energy, Black Panther had to render all vibranium across the world completely inert. But because of the fact that it was believed that he had totally shattered the economic standing of Wakanda, basically obliterated any and all financial resources that they had, ultimately Shuri maintained the role of Black Panther and T'Challa became king of the dead. But like Supergiant shows up on the doorstep of Black Panther and unbeknownst to him gets absolutely wrecked because Black Panther is a beast. That's why I love the way Hickman writes Black Panther, because he's like, hey man, you know, look, you can come here and you can pick a fight. Just be aware, many have tried and many have failed. But from here, we switch over to Atlantis. This is another thing that I want to kind of focus on here and I want to talk about for a second. The animosity between Namor the Submariner and Black Panther has only ever really been a recent thing. I mean, for the most part, they were kind of teammates, and I mean, you know, they worked together from time to time. But the reason why there was so much animosity at the time this story was being written was because of a story called Avengers versus X-Men, which we've covered. And Avengers versus X-Men saw Namor the Submariner basically getting one part of the Phoenix Force, which was also split among Emma Frost of the X-Men, Cyclops of the X-Men, Colossus, and his sister Magic. The result is that Namor the Submariner launched an attack against Wakanda and destroyed the entirety of the necropolis and the whole 9 yards. So Wakanda's still in a rebuilding phase. But in response to this, Black Panther destroyed the entirety of Atlantis. Like, he sent his soldiers, sent his forces to Atlantis, invaded it, and just razed it to the ground. And so at this point, Atlantis is on the verge of complete and total destruction. So when Proxima Midnight shows up on the doorstep of Namor the Submariner and says, "We're looking for the Infinity Stones. Tell me where they are, or I'll destroy what paltry little kingdom you have left." And so for Namor the Submariner to be told, Atlantis will be destroyed. Whatever little soldiers you have left, they'll be totally annihilated. I'll destroy you and everything that you know and love. Then it's like, okay, I'll do whatever I have to do in order to make sure Atlantis is safe. But vengeance is on his mind. And so when the question is asked by Proxima Midnight, where is the Infinity Stones? Where should I send all these forces of Thanos? The response of Namor the Submariner is, it's in Wakanda. Because that way it'll see just the total destruction of Black Panther and everything in Wakanda itself. But from here, we move to what's probably one of the best parts of Infinity. We move to the Ebony Maw. Now, I love the Ebony Maw. Oh my God, I love Ebony Maw. He is such a great character. The whole idea is that he uses words to basically dupe people into doing things, but he's basically ensnared Doctor Strange. And that's what's so cool about this, is because you're talking about like the master of the mystic arts, right? Like, Doctor Strange has, for the most part, over the course of his life, seen and done it all. I mean, you have all kinds of characters out there that Doctor Strange has had to contend against that are insanely powerful. Then you have someone like the Ebony Maw, and he just shows up and just whispers things into the ear of Doctor Strange, and then suddenly he's ensnared. And so it's interesting, and it's wild, because at this moment right now, he's basically just a pawn. But at this point, we switch over to the Jean Grey School. Now, something else that I want you guys to also be aware of, the Jean Grey School and really the X-Men at the time this story is written, they're basically in shambles, right? Like, this comes out of Schism, and we covered the Schism story. That was basically a story where Wolverine and Cyclops had two distinctly different views on what direction the, Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters should go in. And because they had basically irreconcilable differences, they basically had their own little mini civil war. And you had Wolverine, who broke off and formed the Jean Grey School of Higher Learning, and then you had Cyclops, who stayed at the Xavier School, and they just ran two different institutions. But that's why you don't see like the full brunt of the X-Men here. It's basically just Wolverine's X-Men team, and Cyclops' team isn't here. But showing up alongside Supergiant and Corvus Glaive, this is cool, because Corvus Glaive is like the first of the five, right? Like, he's like the first of the Cull Obsidian. But like, Supergiant is nothing to scoff at. And in fact, Supergiant actually goes through, analyzes all the powers of the mutants who were here, and says, okay, so you have two types. You have alpha mutants and you have omega level mutants. The alpha mutants, don't worry about them. The omega level ones are the ones we have to worry about. And that's true. Like, we know that from covering like the omega level mutant series. You're talking about mutants that have no definitive end to the power they possess. It's basically infinite. And the first person she seizes control of is Iceman, because Iceman is probably the character who's easiest to use to basically freeze everybody up, to completely and totally take them over. But then suddenly you have Wolverine, who jumps in. But the issue with this is that as soon as he jumps into the fray, he's immediately impaled by Corvus Glaive, and he's like, done. Like, you're done. You're finished, man. Like, I don't know what to tell you, man, but like, you're done. There's nothing else with you besides this whole thing. Like that's it. And so the result is that switching back over to Wakanda, what we end up finding out is like the Black Dwarf just got wrecked. Like, he was absolutely decimated. But it's kind of funny, because where Shuri and the other members of Wakanda would relish in this and celebrate, Black Panther, like T'Challa, he's hardened. Like, he's been down this road a multitude of times, especially when it came to like Ulysses Claw. And so the idea in his mind is they weren't really looking for this kind of resistance. They weren't really expecting to show up here and get absolutely like steamrolled by Wakanda. But once they're here, they're looking for a thing in particular. And so they will come back with a much larger force. And that's what he's concerned about. And so what ends up happening is that we pick up in the aftermath of this, right? Like, we pick up with Thanos' ship sitting over at Tillin, but it's kind of cool because you have like the Black Dwarf, you've got Corvus Glaive, you got Proxima Midnight, you have everybody except for the Ebony Maw who basically show up here. Now remember, when it comes to Thanos and the Black Order, for the most part, they're given a lot of leeway, right? Like, Thanos is like, here's my instructions, complete them, I don't care how you do it, as long as you do not come back here with failure. That's basically the rule. And so they're kind of given free reign. And the Ebony Maw is no different. When Thanos looked at the Ebony Maw, he basically says, okay, look, his methods aren't necessarily normal, they're pretty unorthodox, unorthodox, but he gets results. And at the end of the day, that's all I care about, because people are asking like, where's the Ebony Maw? We can't communicate with him telepathically. He's not using his communicator. He's basically gone off the reservation. He's off the radar entirely. But Thanos isn't really worried about that because the Ebony Maw always gets results. The issue with this is that the other members are really, Proxima Midnight says, look, according to Namor the Submariner, he told me that like the time stone's in Wakanda, so we're gonna have to go to Wakanda. Now, Thanos' response is cool, but I'm gonna go down to the Inhuman Royal City first. I'm gonna deal with them, and we'll find out, where that extends to in the next video. But in this one, it's kind of cool because, like the Black Dwarf is like, hey man, look, I'm really, really sorry I failed. I'm sorry I screwed up, but I'll make up for it, man. And Thanos is like, no, you will not. Like one, I'm gonna smash your head into the ground. I'm gonna help you understand your place in the bigger picture, and then you're gonna go sit in a cell and you're just gonna wait until I call for you. Now, this is a pretty significant thing because for the Cold Obsidian, one of the most important things they can do is one, please Thanos, and two, if they please Thanos, to hand their lives over to death. That's really what they shoot for. But with Thanos being displeased, it's like the ultimate failure on their behalf. They lose respect of the other members, from the other members of the Cold Obsidian. And so the result is that Black Dwarf is just kind of in a pretty rough spot at the moment. And so what ends up happening here is like the entire force of Wakanda, Black Panther, Shuri, all their soldiers, the whole 9 yards, are basically forced to look on as Thanos' invasion fleet moves full on into Wakanda. Proxima Midnight, Corvus Glaive, Supergiant, the whole 9 yards. They all basically make their move onto Wakanda. And the question that's left here is, what chance does Wakanda have? What possible hope do they have against the entire brunt of Thanos' armies combined with the Black Order, along with Thanos presumably showing up after he's done dealing with the Inhumans? But with that being said, guys, we're gonna bring this video to an end. If you are new here to Comics Explained, make sure you guys hit the sub button to become part of the Rob Corps. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you drop a like, and I will catch you all later. Peace.